Hello and welcome. I am live from Pellam's Wasteland, and today I have another episode of Pellam's Wasteland Reads for you all. This time covering The Maniac by Benjamin Labatut. I hope that's how you pronounce. I think he is. I was looking at his biography on Goodreads, the little author blurb, and that he is from the Netherlands but lives in Chile. And so I hope that Benjamin is I guess it might be like Benjamín or something like that. Um, but the Maniac is a really really excellent book that is one of the best that I have read this year. I would say I've read a number of good books this year, but a number of those have been rereads of things. So, like, rereading Thomas Brown, Religio Medici, and Urn Burial was one of the ones I was thinking of. Rereading The Lord of the Rings was super fun. All these other things, but The Maniac is one that I had just found in a bookstore and thought it sounded really cool and read it and really, really loved it, which is why I wanted to talk about it. Um, this is kind of a grim book in a lot of ways. It is not very cheery in a lot of places. There's long sections of it that are basically about some of the smartest people in the 20th century um, going crazy and suffering from their brilliance and having all sorts of horrible things happening in their lives, and also, fleeing from the Nazis and things like that. So there's definitely a fairly depressing quality to this one in a lot of places, but I think it is really good if you can get over that, basically, if that's not going to bother you. Um, this is a book that I would say it's about, but it, like a lot of really great books, it is not so much about the things that happen in it as the kind of connections between all of these things, and the sort of thematic details that it gets into are really fascinating. But it tells a story of these three men in particular. They're sort of the focal points for the three parts of the book. The first one being a physicist named Paul Ehrenfest, and the second one being a Hungarian polymath and mathematician and all sorts of other things, John von Neumann or von Neumann. I don't know how you pronounce his name either, and he's Hungarian, so he didn't start as John von Neumann. That was, an Ellis Island name change sort of thing. And then the last one being Lee Sedol, who is a ferociously capable player of the game of Go from South Korea. And each of these figures forms kind of the center of their section. The first section on Ehrenfest is, I don't know, maybe 30, 35 pages. And then the big chunk in the middle is John von Neumann. And then the last section, maybe, 60 or 70 pages, is maybe a little more than that, is Lee Sedol. And each of these sections of the book covers the lives of these men, but also covers a lot of other things that are sort of related to the things that they did and the things that happened to them, and really comes to become a story that is about a number of, like I said, kind of specific thematic convergences between these different stories. And in particular, one of the biggest ones has to do with the development of computers and computerized intelligence and artificial intelligence, and the relationship between kind of calculation and estimation or intuition. One of the big kind of arching through this whole story is this relationship between what we might describe as like sort of pure arithmetic calculation, and estimation or intuition when that sort of pure calculation is no longer really viable. And so at the start, that is a lot of talking about like the development of quantum theory and this idea of the kind of changes in physics as it changes from kind of classical Newtonian physics into the modern understandings of physics that are based on things like probability and statistical assumptions about the way that these things work, because we can't really know precisely how these things are happening. And then all the way at the other end of the story is the computer program that plays Go, and that the game of Go is so fiendishly complex as a game that it is truly impossible to calculate out the way that you can brute force calculate with a game like chess, right? Chess, even though it has a lot of possibilities, the possibilities are just orders of magnitude smaller than for the game of Go. And so it is much more possible to calculate out, so say, like every possible move for the rest of the game after a given move. And so calculating for a computer to play chess is basically just calculating out the rest of the game from each move and saying, okay, well, what would be the best way to win from here? And that uh, Go doesn't work like that. Go is too complex for that to work. It requires intuition. Is the assumption basically that it is so immensely complex, so kind of huge is the total number of board states that could arise from any state in the game, that it does not allow for this type of specific arithmetic calculation, and instead requires this intuitive sense of, well, from here, where might the game develop and who is winning or losing, or might be winning or losing, or something like that. And that this is, of course, a big development for a computer to be able to play this way, right? That this is a real uh, triumph of neural network digital learning, basically, to be able to do something like this. And isn't that so fascinating? And that's kind of the place that we end up at the end of this story. um and I guess so much of the things that happen in this book are historical things. This is sort of almost like a kind of fictionalized. It is very much, I would not say necessarily historical fiction so much as it is a fictionalized reportage of all of these real things that happened. And so the lives of all of these characters and the things that went through them, and the words are not the literal words of many of these people, but they are kind of a reportage of what things happened to them, I guess. In a sense, it very much is historical fiction, I guess, but it is historical fiction with a very different flavor than a lot of it, I suppose, is maybe the way to describe it. That there's um, a much closer stylistically to great nonfiction in a lot of ways, I suppose, is what I am getting at. And that is part of, I think, why this is so good. It is this kind of immense and fascinating meditation on the 20th century and the early 21st century, and all of these transformative technologies and developments in intellectual history, and developments in physics and mathematics, and the invention of the computer, and the way that computers have so radically kind of transformed the world in all of these totally unexpected ways. And all of this different stuff is sort of present in there, alongside these just beautiful and heart-wrenching passages about very, very intelligent people watching their lives fall apart, because there's a lot of that in this story of some of the most famous scientists of the 20th century, all having things fall apart on them. it is a really um, just fascinating and immense and hard to summarize book because it is so wrapped up in these kind of thematic convergences. And I think that's so much of why I liked it a lot is that the connection between the different things going on is not necessarily a the kind of linear step by step process of fiction where the layout is based on causality, but a layout based on kind of synchronicity or a kind of sympathetic quality almost. This idea of like the way that these stories matter with each other is not just because one causes the other, but because they represent people struggling with the same sorts of things across these different periods and different parts of the world, which is also, I think, so much of why it feels rewarding to read and to engage with, and that there is something there that is really worth, understanding and learning about and all of that sort of stuff. And that's so much of why I really liked it because it's great. I really do think that this is a pretty spectacular book. I haven't read any other Labatut books. I know he has a couple of others. I think there's another one that I saw at the bookstore also, When We Cease to Understand the World. And I guess I will have to read that one also because I enjoyed this one so much. But yeah, this I think is the real deal for books that are worth reading and thinking about and thinking a lot about because it is um, really kind of seriously about shit that matters. Basically, it is this kind of immense meditation on things that are worth understanding, and really uncompromisingly focused on all of those things in a way that is just fascinating and great to read. So anyway, The Maniac, Benjamin Labatut. It's uh 300 and something pages in print, and totally worth spending your time reading because it's really good. um, yeah, published in 2023, I guess I will add because I'm seeing that, and that's I like to put some of those details in also. So anyway, The Maniac, Benjamin Labatut, this kind of fascinating story about physics and computers and mathematicians and the game of Go and all of the different things that people care about. Yeah, but that is going to be it for me for today. If you have read this book or any number of things like it that you want to talk about, leave a comment down below. Um, Otherwise, I've been live from Pellam's Wasteland, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.